Great. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, man.
Happy to be here.
Excellent. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Safest Family on the Block, where knowledge is power. I'm your host, Jason, and joining me today is Joe Borovicka. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you on board as well. Now, I first became aware of Joe through his Instagram. Is it a page? Is it a presence? Is it a profile? I don't know. I'll ask my son.
Anymore, I don't even know, man.
Yeah, exactly. Which is called You Safer Now. So could you start by telling us a little bit about what do you do there and how did you get there?
Sure. Like maybe a lot of your guests and some of your listeners, I've been interested in self-protection and martial arts and similar things my whole life. When it comes to martial arts, I mean, I started with a classical system, and then I did a number of things, and I'm still a martial artist. But had something pivotal happen to me. I was just finished second year in just finished first year in high school, and it wasn't so much that I got attacked. It was that I saw the elephant. And do you know that? Have you heard that term?
No, I have not.
I saw the elephant. So in some old books, you can hear this referred to. Well, just imagine, Jason, and listeners, imagine that let's say you're on the Sahara, and I don't know what your errand is. Maybe you're hunting, maybe you're just hiking, maybe you're on a trip somewhere. And it's for a moment there, it's just you, and you turn, and there's a male bull elephant looking at you, and you've never seen an elephant before up close, but this thing looks angry. You can just tell, and it's making itself bigger, and then it kind of lowers its head and it charges. And it doesn't matter what your training is. It doesn't matter if you prepared for this moment or not. If you didn't know that the elephant was there, you get this feeling of seeing the elephant, and it's like deer in the headlights. For a moment, at least, you're going to freeze, and it's mental, it's emotional, probably physical too. You're going to freeze and go, oh. So we hear this in war novels, historical books, where people quote saw the elephant. And usually it's a violent encounter or something like that, but it could be anything that's a challenge. So in a way, I saw the elephant. A friend and I just took a vacation with his family, second summer in a row, and a beautiful area. We were familiar with it because we've been there the summer before, and we decided to do two different things halfway through the afternoon, our first day there, and we had a meetup point. And my friend didn't make it to the meetup point. And we don't have much with us, but I got a watch. Cell phones didn't exist back then. So I'm looking at my watch going, where's my friend? And I ended up looking for him. I had a hard time finding him. And when I did find him, he's at the bottom of a waterfall, sort of half in, half out of the water. And the only way to describe him, and trigger warning, there's some injury here. The only way to describe him is he was broken. And it's starting to get dark. And I might have had some basic first aid training, but I'm not an emergency medical technician. I'm not trained for this. I've already got a background in martial arts and just started combat sports, but I'm not trained for this. So I'm looking at him, and he's in and out of consciousness, and he's complaining about his head. And I know enough to go, wait a minute, I can't move him. He's hurt everywhere, and he's complaining about his head. So he had fallen somewhere up above near the waterfall. And I was lucky enough to find him at the bottom. And at that point, I saw the elephant. You get that, your heart dropping, or your stomach kind of dropping. Your body goes, doo, and the world goes gray. and it's sort of black and white. And I'm going, what do I do? So can you imagine, like you're looking and you didn't expect this. It's an ambush. And do I stay with him in his last moments? Because these could be his last moments. Do I run and get help? I don't know if I can find him again. What do I do? And I'm frozen there for as long as I was there. It was probably a few seconds, may have been a minute or two. I don't know. And then I realized I could do both. When I really stopped for a moment and thought about it, I went, wait a minute, I need to do something. What's important right now? Well, I got to save my friend if I can. So I went ahead and did both. When he was caught him when he was conscious, said a small prayer with him, told him what I was going to do, and then I ran all the way to the campground. Learned how to give adults orders because when I asked for help, people ignored me. I'm bare chested, covered with mud, teenager. Everyone's kind of bigger than me, and I'm a stranger. I learned real quick that if I tell people to do things, they actually do them, even though I'm a stranger and I'm a kid. Trained some folks to, instructed some folks to stay by the trailhead, told some other folks to go that way and call somebody, get a car, told some other folks to go that way. I know there's a hard line that way because there were no cell phones. So had some redundancy here. When the rescuers come, you go up here. Went back up, had a hard time finding him. Again, my heart's dropping. Oh no, I've lost him. Made a decision, keep moving, and I found him. Sort of long story short, we got a chopper in. We got rescuers in, got a chopper into him. Wait for the end. He died in the chopper. He came back in the chopper, and against all odds, medically, he's still alive today. And not completely mobile, but we were able to get him out of there. What in the world does that have to do with self-defense? Well, as I was coming up through a classical martial arts system, I thought I was studying self-defense, but I'm really glad I did that. I'm not anti-karate or anything like that. It was really great for me, but my mind was on self-defense. And then I realized there was sort of a hole in my game, so I got into grappling. And then some other things, and then Filipino martial arts, and then military combatives as part of my career. And the whole time I'm thinking, will this work? Will this work for what I need it for? And it got me thinking, well, wait, what do I need it for? Partly I'm just nutty about this stuff because it's fun. It's a great way to build community, and it's a great workout. But what am I really trying to do? Well, all I'm really trying to do is get to safety. It's really all I'm doing, unless I'm part of some, mission where there's this other objective. And for most of us, that's it. I mean, you take your, regardless of what our day job is, when something happens, when we see the elephant, most of the time, our mission is to get to safety and get our loved ones to safety, and that's it. And that's obviously what I was very happy to come here. Thanks for having me, because that's what you're doing. That's the tree you're barking on. The nexus of that is I realized that all of the techniques, all of the training that I'd done for so many years in this system and that sport, it was all really good stuff. But when I started studying self-protection, really got to the core of it, and I went, oh, all that stuff that I just spent 3 decades studying, those are really good tricks to know. But it wasn't the foundation. Right? It doesn't mean don't learn judo. Doesn't mean don't learn boxing. If you want to, it's a lot of work. Do it. It's great. Really good tricks to know. So today, what I do is bring that, a career in the military, some psychology that I studied, organizational psychology, some a number of things we can get into later. And I really lean heavily on Tony Blauer's spear system. I know you had him on the show. That foundation really leads me in what I do. And you might be familiar with the spear system to some degree, but what I really enjoy doing is taking successful people and making them more successful so that they
Mhm.
feel secure, they feel safe no matter where they are in the world. So this could be business people, it could be family people. Are you successful? Yeah, you're talking to me right now. Looks like you're pretty successful. But what's going on? Let's figure that out. More times than not, a very immediate feeling of safety or lack thereof, physical safety, is in the way of some other things that people are going after. So you go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can't go to the opera if you're worried about where you're going to sleep that night. So we're complex creatures.
Mhm.
We freeze mentally, emotionally, physically. Well, we've got some work to do mentally, emotionally, physically too. And
Mhm.
sometimes that really important mental and emotional stuff, one of the best ways to get after it is to get this very real concern that isn't going away in the world of our physical
Mhm.
safety. Let's
Mhm.
get that out of the way. And by the way, the solution isn't physical. The solution is mental and
Mhm.
emotional, but getting that security thing out of the way, let's get that squared away, and it really opens doors
Mhm.
to what people are working on, be it more success at work or more success in personal development,
Mhm.
family, etc. That, and we don't want to get surprised.
Yeah.
And if we do, we need to be able to take care of ourselves. So yeah, that's what I do.
Outstanding. Now, I like what you said about your martial arts training was really fun. I'm here in 40 years of martial arts training my own self, but for middle class, middle aged, suburban people who live in North America, the best self protection benefit we get from those classes is getting some good cardio twice a week. Because
Absolutely.
if you look at what's going to kill someone in our lifestyle, it's a sedentary lifestyle.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Just
Mhm.
move
Yeah.
is yeah. And
Mhm.
then beyond that, you've got the
Mhm.
benefits of community and being
Yeah.
social. Part of a good school, that's in a way that's
Mhm.
priceless.
It absolutely is. Actually, my very first, I'm a freelance writer by trade, and my very first article in Black Belt magazine was the top 10 non-combat benefits of martial arts training. And
Nice.
it's exactly what you're talking about the community, about the flexibility, falling skills, which to me
Oh
remains
yes.
the single most important physical self-defense skill you're going to learn. Because I haven't been in a fight this millennium. I fall down twice a
Right.
year, whether I need to or not.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm often reminded how good
Mhm.
it is to have years of, in my case, sport judo, wrestling, and
Mhm.
some other things under my belt
Mhm.
because, yeah, it's who knows what else I would have broken if I didn't have.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Now you mentioned and I see a lot of things on your Instagram feed that support this, the idea that self-defense starts in the mental and the emotional space,
yeah,
not the physical high off space. So could you address that a little bit?
sure. The Instead of thinking about let's say a really good punch that we learn if we're a boxer or a really good
Mhm.
sidekick if you're doing classical karate. Yeah, let's look at that as a tool.
Mhm.
And instead of thinking about the sidekick as a tool, maybe we think of a sidearm.
Mhm.
So you've got a handgun or a taser or gas. It's a tool that you carry, literally a tool that you
Mhm.
carry with you. It could be a pen if you have plans, whatever. So you can do a lot of training with that tool, and even a simple thing like a pen can be so versatile. You do all this training, and then when you see the elephant, in this case, it's a human that also brought a tool, and you didn't expect them, but quickly you put together that they've got plans and they're not good. If the mental and emotional isn't plugged in, along with, and I'm talking together with the technique or the tool or both that you practice, you're never going to access the tool to begin with. Forget the technique. You won't even access the tool. And why do I say that? Nobody walks. Let's say it's a pen. Nobody walks around like this. It's socially unacceptable. My hand is up near my head as if I'm going to stab somebody, ice pick style. You can't do that any more than you can walk around with a handgun in your hand. So you might be ready, so to speak, but you're not walking around at the ready, right? If you're frozen for a variety of reasons, and they're not the reasons you think, you're never going to access the tool, and much less use it effectively. Why might we not access the tool? Well, we haven't practiced operating the tool under these conditions. What conditions? I'm terrified. I'm scared. I'm off balance, mentally and emotionally off balance.
One of the best illustrations I've seen of that is when you think about arming yourself for self-defense. Think about the last time you tried to take a picture under time pressure with your phone.
Yes.
And then think about how much more often you take pictures than you stab people, and how much more stress and fear you're going to be under if you're in a situation where you might need to reach for your weapon. And that kind of begins
Absolutely.
to illustrate
Yes.
how.
So there's then I love that. I'm going to steal it. That's a good one. That's a good metaphor.
I stole it from Spencer Corson, so go right ahead.
There you go.
It's the circle
Awesome.
of theft.
The circle. Now let's add to that. Let's steal the camera metaphor. Okay,
Yeah.
I do this a lot, but in one case, I'm afraid that if I take a picture, I might get arrested because I thought there might have been a sign, or there is a sign, but I'm not sure if I'm in the area that applies. And the person's watching me, and where you have that sort of doubt, because we're human, we naturally have hesitation.
Yeah.
And that hesitation, and this is straight out of the KNOW fear, no fear with the K, straight out of the no fear program with the Spear system. All credit to Tony Blauer and his crew. When we get that doubt, in this case, I'm just trying to take a picture, but I think I might get in trouble. Excuse me. That doubt creates hesitation. Hesitation can create fixation on the problem. And I'm skipping a whole bunch of steps here, but that will eventually result in some sort of neuro association, like I feel terrible, butterflies in my stomach, might even have sweaty palms. I get the audio exclusion, the tunnel vision, which further reinforces the doubt and the hesitation. And now I'm in this thing called a fear loop. It's natural. And it happens to us when I don't really want to take that exam for that certification in 6 months. Didn't go so well last time. I can be in a fear loop for weeks and the books are still on the shelf. Or I can be in a fear loop for seconds because I've got the shopping with the kids and there's an armed person here and I didn't expect them. It's still a fear loop, right? Either way. Practicing identifying what that is in you and then practicing navigating that is the key. The tools come second.
I think one of the places that the fear loop concept that a lot of listeners will, I guess, connect with is that conversation that you need to have with a friend or a coworker that you're afraid is going to be unpleasant. And the way that we keep finding the excuse not to have it. They walk into the room, we get the kind of butterfly feeling, and then we don't have the conversation, and we put it off, and we put it off, and we put it off, and we put it off. That's an example of the fear loop.
Absolutely. And we all know, because we've all done this, so we've all chosen not to have that. We've all at some point chosen to have that. It just depends on the situation and where we were. We all know the feeling of it's never as bad as we imagined it.
Yeah.
It's often different. It's never as bad, right? The moment we're in it, it's like the cold water. The moment you're in it, you're like, oh, well, okay, now I'm in it.
Yeah.
It's that transition, that really gets us. Another piece folks forget about, it's not just the moment, it's the past. Because if we had a bad experience that's similar to this, that's, we've got some scar tissue there. So we need to understand that this is similar looking, sort of. It's not the same thing. I'm not the same person. I'm not the same person. I don't know about you. I'm not the same person I was 10 minutes ago, much less 10 years ago, the last time this thing, happened to
Mhm.
me. So we've got to remember that, live in the moment. And then a lot of times, or one definition of fear is that I'm envisioning something in the future. Envisioning, it's not real.
Mhm.
I'm envisioning something in the future and it's affecting my movement in the present.
Mhm.
So it's really this fear of the future that what if I take the picture, I'm going to get in trouble. Well, I'm not in trouble right now. Let's
Mhm.
maybe stay in the moment and figure out what's appropriate to do instead of getting tied up in something that isn't even happening right now, because it's just not useful. But it's also very human. Our ability to plan and forecast is part of what keeps us safe, and that fear is a
Mhm.
signal. It's I got the book behind me, Gift of
Yeah.
Fear. Yeah, it's a signal, and we need to follow it. It's just a blinking light. Look at it, take that step. Water's not as cold as you thought it was. Just get in there, look around. Um, as my mentor says, there is no situational awareness without self-awareness, and part of that is knowing what you're going to do when you're off balance. The most important thing is off balance emotionally and mentally. Learning how to navigate that automatically makes you safer, and it's got to go together with whatever it is you're learning. I mean, it could be driving, it could be taking a test. In my case, it's self protection.
Excellent. Now, speaking of that, the idea we started this part of the conversation with the fact that we don't practice with our self defense skills, the physical self defense skills, in the same situation we do. Sparring, even going really hard with a trusted training partner on the mat who will stop hitting you if you lose consciousness,
Yeah.
with classmates and a sensei right there, is not the same thing as accessing those skills and those tools in an alley with your kid behind you while someone's coming at you with a weapon. Those are very, very different contexts.
Different.
Now, yeah, and training one thing does not prepare us fully for training for another thing. The only thing that would prepare us for the other thing is to actually get into lethal altercations on a regular basis, which is not recommended.
Not safe.
No. However, there are some things that are kind of adjacent to, especially the physiological state. So one that I've used for a long time is, if you think about that fear response, the tunnel vision, the queasy stomach, the shaking legs, the complete loss of fine motor skills,
Yep.
the pounding heart, the breath coming faster. That actually feels very much like, when was the last time you really ripped it up on the track and like did like a 400-meter sprint?
It feels a lot like a
Yeah,
high intensity interval type workout or a
yeah,
wrestling match.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also wrestled in high school. If you've never wrestled, you do not know how exhausting that is. Right?
Yep.
But going ahead and getting on the track, and or doing some high intensity interval training, and then when you are at that just short of puking stage, going ahead and practicing some of those skills, whether those are verbal skills, whether those are running a
Yes.
form or doing some techniques, whether that's practicing. I would recommend dry fire at first, but practicing
Yes.
accessing your weapon and pointing it in the right direction. But
Yep.
that is one way that I've learned that, again, A never equals B, but you can get as close to it, and that can make you better prepared. I imagine you have some other techniques and training things that my listeners might
Sure.
benefit from.
Sure. What you said is spot on. You can see this in some self defense programs where they might try to bring
Mm.
a trainee or trainees to that point and then put them in a simulated violent situation. So they're already there, but now we've got the violent situation. Can I do this when I'm winded? Um, all of that, it makes sense to some degree, and I think it's useful. What's what people often forget about, because when they think training, they think of that physical piece.
Mm.
There's this sort of refraction time between I'm fine, there's a problem, or I just got attacked. If it's a true ambush, you don't know that it's there, right?
Mm.
But assuming you're still conscious, the first place you're truly hit in a real non-consensual fight, different than sport, Okay, non-consensual violence, and not ritual. It's not two guys at a bar bumping chests. You looked at my woman. Yeah, that's a ritual fight. Either guy can walk away. There's a hidden social contract in there. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about non-consensual violence. Between the first place you're hit
Mhm.
in a real non-consensual fight are your emotions.
Mhm.
It's not of course it's the head. We're head hunters, but the important part
Mhm.
is the first place you're hit is your emotions, and oftentimes it's not a strike. It's body posture. It's looking at someone heading your way, and you just know
Mhm.
you're like, oh, you didn't expect this right
Mhm.
now. This is scary. It's the emotion. So how in the world do we practice that refractory time? Because if we're doing 400s and deadlifts and 400s on the track, and then practicing, let's say a grappling or get up drill with a trusted partner, that's all good, right? But it's also all consensual.
Mhm.
So believe it or not, one thing to replicate's not quite the right word, but that's what I'll use. That refractory time is having a partner who's just a really good bad guy.
Mhm.
So somebody that knows. Get on YouTube and watch pictures of real violence, some movies or something. Practice what they're doing. So instead of pardon me, instead of I punch and you do X or Y, or we've got 15 counters to that. Okay, great. I'm going to practice all 15 of them. Well, we'll forget about the counters. How about look at the thing that happened before the thing that happened? So how is he punching you? Well, his hands moving like this. Okay, good. What happened before that? Well, he had to get close to me. Hmm. What happened before that? He was leaning on the wall. He was looking at me. He looked around to see if anyone was watching. Then he leaned off the wall, walked up to me, closed the distance, and then he punched me. Okay. What happened before that? Pardon me. Now you see where I'm going with this. If you get a really good actor and you just stand there and watch and just let it happen in a safe environment, of course, but pretend in your head that it's real. Now you've got this refractory time of, okay, I see what's happening. I can let myself
Mhm.
feel that fear because we've got really great imaginations. You just have to let it happen. Okay, this is actually happening. All right. Now, whatever you think is worth practicing, whatever it is that yeah, plug that in at the end. But the important part is how do I avoid this situation, right? And you can't do that unless you pick up the pre-contact cues. Just because you pick up the pre-contact cues doesn't mean that you'll move. Remember, we see the elephant. Oh, how long are
Yeah.
you going to stay there, right?
Mhm.
And when I say move, people think move, get off the X. Yes, this is really what I'm thinking,
Mhm.
talking about. I'm pointing to my head here. The movement is mental. So the moment I see that something is wrong, more likely the moment I feel something is wrong, I'm moving. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that I'm paranoid. No. In fact, the center of what I focus on is how to do this with less energy.
Mhm.
Because if it's a habit and we're used to making these choices based off how we feel, and it costs nothing, choosing safety costs nothing,
Mhm.
then we're automatically safer. And if we get ambushed anyway, more than likely we're still picking up in pre-contact cues, which make it a little bit less of an ambush. So you're choosing safety sooner.
Mhm.
You're stacking the deck in your favor. And at the end of the day, we all just want to go home safe. So we're
Mhm.
practicing for the worst case, and we get to do the cool, fun, physical stuff. Because let's face it, it's a lot of fun. Even more fun if you actually think it will work, because it's simple, it's effective, it's primal. It works when you have zero small motor skills. It can be an awful lot of fun, but it starts with the mental
Mhm.
and the emotional,
Mhm.
because we have to assume that we're going to be off balance when we do that.
Another benefit of that kind of training where you're kind of tracking the steps before
Yep.
is if you are in a situation where you need to use self-defense, you're also setting yourself up for justification of force when the DA and the dude's lawyer call you.
Absolutely. Yes. In fact, if you narrate what's happening, and I'm talking about like just talking out loud,
Mhm.
not only are you getting it into your mind, better what's happening, it's a way of learning. You're also rehearsing how to explain this to the officer
Mhm.
for the report, which is not a bad skill. It's essential skill if you're a law enforcement officer,
Mhm.
but for citizens like us, I think it should be taught in school. Like,
Mhm.
this is how you size up a situation. Get ready to write a report on it because you're about to make some decisions. It
Yeah.
also means that you're not going to get tied up thinking about that future, what amounts to a future fight.
Yeah.
Is that there's this fight between you and you when you see
Mhm.
the elephant. And there's this fight between you and the bad guy. And then there's this fight between you and the system.
Yeah.
And it's often the fear of you and the system that keeps you frozen in that first fight of you versus you. And if you don't
Mhm.
get out of that first fight, then you're not going to make a decision and move. So
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
careful what Tony Blauer says, careful which practice, you might get really good at the wrong thing.
Mhm.
Again, it doesn't mean don't learn boxing, for heaven's sakes. If you want to learn the sweet science, by all means do. It's an awful lot of fun. But when it comes to self-protection, make sure you're practicing self-protection too.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm talking about, is all this stuff has to be in sync with how we practice this, regardless of your chosen tools or
Mhm.
system. If you're going to practice self-protection, make sure you're practicing it. And
Mhm.
it's not just physical, it's
Yeah.
mental, emotional, situational awareness, all that.
And one of the benefits of getting into the mental and emotional, the awareness aspects is if you are somebody who enjoys training, whether that's getting in the ring, getting on the mat, going to the range, it
Yep.
can only benefit you in terms of making you more likely to use those tools. If you're somebody who doesn't have the interest, who doesn't have the time in that, the truth that a lot of self-defense instructors don't necessarily tell everybody is getting the emotional, situational awareness, and mental things in place will very frequently obviate the need for the physical self-defense skills
It's
because
true.
you'll be leaving before the trouble starts.
No, it's true. In the spear system, there's there's something called a close quarter tool set, and it's based off how we move every day anyway. So all of us have done thousands of reps of these movements. It turns out the movements are martial too, so you don't need to learn anything new. You've got these things. We're just connecting you with the human weapon that you are. So why a close quarter tool set? And when I say close quarter, I mean extremely. I mean, it's not going to work unless someone's right here. Now, again, I'm not saying don't learn a long distance eye jab knife strike from Filipino martial arts. I think they're awesome. It's great. Learn those angles and learn those things. I like my sidekick. I still practice my sidekick. That's a long distance technique. I don't really plan to use them ever. And why? Well, you versus the system. Imagine trying to explain to people. So wait, you were far enough away that neither of you could touch each other, and then you chose to cross all this distance just to hurt this person. What?
Mm.
And then attempting to land these things again in a situation where we don't really have full control of really anything. It's not all that realistic, and you're not setting yourself up for success if your goal is simply to go home safely.
Mm.
Versus a close quarter tool set, if someone's really trying to do you harm, they have to close the distance. And in the meantime, you're doing things to stop them so they don't close the distance, but you're not committing. If they happen to come, that close into your bubble, sorry,
No
they're
worries.
walking into a blender because of the close quarter tool set. And it's not that hard. We're we put it this way: cavemen didn't practice martial arts, but they did.
Mm.
They just knew. And guess what? We all just know. We do. And you can reconnect with that. Be the human weapon that you are already, and walk around more confident and just secure, and honestly less anxious,
Yeah.
less energy taken with, I'm going to solve this problem, then I'm going to solve this problem. Oh, this is different. Well, guess what? They're not different. You're a human being walking around. You just want to go home safe. So if you're walking around sort of on autopilot like that, life's just a lot more fun, and you can also understand what's happening if something does go down, which in itself is satisfying too. Just kind of see the pieces.
Yeah. I think that's, if I could just like wave a magic wand or get a genie on my side to change the mindset of people who don't train and don't take class in this kind of thing, it would be to eliminate that perception that a lot of folks have, that if you start training and thinking and reading about those things, you will become paranoid, you will become more afraid. I hear that
Right.
objection a lot, but the exact opposite is true. By just kind of, you're basically checking off a couple of mental and emotional boxes, freeing up an
Hmm.
immense amount of your mental and emotional energy to engage more fully in the world. You will see the bad guy, but you'll also see the sunset and the puppy.
Yes. 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 Which all day beats walking around with your head down,
Mhm.
being afraid of what you look at.
Yeah.
And it really is a skill
Mhm.
to have that flashing beacon of this is fear,
Mhm.
and your instinct or your habit. The habit's important. The habit is, let me
Mhm.
check this out. And that's
Yeah.
different. I'm not talking about the Sith from Star Wars, like, getting powerful
Yeah.
from fear. I'm talking about using it as a signal because it's important. That's why
Mhm.
it's there. Hey,
Yeah.
look at me. And then it's not scary because, I mean, ignorance, that's
Mhm.
scary.
Yeah.
But when we really look at it and go, oh, that's what's
Mhm.
happening. Got it. I think I'm going to go over here now. Thanks. Things just got easier.
Yeah. And again, it opens up a wider world. I took my 4-year-old and my 14-year-old to spend a year in Southeast Asia. I took them to Indonesia. We were in Jakarta, for crying out loud,
Cool.
and which was very cool. But I had a feeling like I could take my children to Jakarta. Started with understanding and researching the dangers,
Yep.
accepting what could be dangerous, finding plans for those. And again, all that research, all that work didn't make me go, oh, Lord, we're not going to that really cool city because it's scary. It was, okay, well, let's do a logical analysis of the risks, what we can mitigate, what we can avoid, and then make the call. And all of that
Yes.
starts with the kind of training we're talking about.
Yep. Absolutely. And I can't say it enough. I mean,
Mhm.
you can start anywhere and then go anywhere
Mhm.
with it. But a good place to start is there's no situational awareness without self awareness,
Yeah, absolutely.
because you are the lens. You're the instrument.
And as a
So
parent, we're not just a lens for ourselves, but we are modeling this for
yes.
our kids. That if they see us being fearful, they will grow to be fearful. If they see us being aggressive or reckless, they'll will likely become aggressive or reckless. But if they see us being aware and systematic about our approach, then
Yep.
that's the trait that they'll grow into.
Yep. Intelligently asking for help.
Mhm.
Guess what? They're going to intelligently ask for help.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. All of
Exactly.
those things. It's really a life skill that
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
it's not that it was never taught. Yeah, it was taught. Um, but it should be taught in school now. I think it was taught before because you
Mhm.
would die if you didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
take care of yourself.
Mhm.
Quick aside. I know
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
mentioned grappling before. The
Mhm.
uh, more and more, I'm dipping my toe in historical European martial arts
Mm.
because there's existing manuals, and it's enough where they can
Mhm.
put the systems back together and go, oh, right, that makes sense. How did people move with sharpened pieces of metal, and trying to stay alive with all this, and hand to hand as well. Turns out there's not a lot of books. There's some, but there's not a lot of books on grappling. And some people will ask, well, why didn't the European people fight all over the world? Like, why didn't the Europeans have a grappling system? Well, they did. They did. I mean, where do you think
Mhm.
freestyle wrestling came from, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's everyone's got their own everywhere
Mhm.
you go. Did you know that Icelandic wrestling, is the national sport of Iceland? And the Mongolians, they
Mhm.
have their own style of wrestling. Um, there's not in Europe anyway. There weren't a whole lot of manuals about wrestling or grappling
Mhm.
because it was just assumed that you already
Mhm.
knew it. especially
Mhm,
if you're noble
mhm,
or a knight or a man at arms or something like that. You would
mhm,
grow up doing that, like every kid
mhm.
does anyway,
Yeah.
especially back then. You would grow up doing that and having people go, yeah, 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 try this. And by the way, if there's a blade around, you want to keep, keep this in mind. And
Mhm,
that's your basis.
mhm,
And then you get into some more artsy stuff where you're like, hey, if you really know timing a distance with a blade and you got this footwork, you can set this up. It'll
mhm,
save you a lot of energy and grief.
mhm,
You don't have to roll around on the ground with these people. But if you get two swordsmen with the same skill and the same strength and the same length, weapons
mhm,
for theory's sake, the best wrestler is going to win
mhm.
because that's what it's going to devolve to. So anyway, I just found that
Yeah.
interesting that, I mean, yeah, kids
Yeah.
wrestle if you let them,
Mhm.
they'll do it. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, people had very complicated, very effective, and well, complicated and simple wrestling systems all over the world.
Mhm.
Writing it down was something different.
No, I like that. They didn't bother to write it down because they just kind of figured everybody's been tussling with their brothers and cousins since they were old enough to stand. So
Yes,
we don't have to write that down.
yeah, they did write
Yeah.
down
Mhm.
some notes on this is how you wrestle in armor because it's
Ooh.
different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I digress. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah, I can nerd out about that stuff all day.
Yep.
Now, I had a question. You teach these concepts pretty widely in your area,
Mhm.
and I'm curious for parents, what are some of the ways that we can teach our children these things? What are some skills, drills, ways of approaching it? I mean, leading by example, we talked about before, but
Right.
besides that, are there some games we can play, some drills we can do, PowerPoint?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
One of one thing we can do is watch a situation.
Mhm,
Just sit in a the airport or a street park bench, watch it, and just ask the kid what they see.
mhm, mhm,
So a quick story. I always think I should be doing more of this with my kids. So that's all,
mhm,
background too. I can't believe they actually like did this, but they did it when I asked them to. I was in the Netherlands at one point, and if you've ever been to some of the museums in Amsterdam, they're amazing. Everybody should go. I was in one of these museums, and somehow I ticked off one of the security guards.
mhm,
I don't know how. Like I don't want to do that, right? And I've worked in uniform before, and so I feel like I've kind of been in his shoes. And anyway, it got to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to leave now. And I told my family
mhm,
I'm going to be up. I'm going to be up there. The museum was underground. And as I try to leave, the guy gets in my face again, saying I'm going the wrong way. And okay, if I'm going the wrong way, great. But he was like,
mhm,
I couldn't understand what he was saying, even though he had excellent English, because he just seemed very angry. And he's telling me to go here and there. And I'm in this nonviolent posture, that I practice. I've got my hands up in front of my shoulders. This is a fighting stance,
mhm.
much better than another fighting stance that actually looks like a fighting stance for a variety
Right.
of reasons. I'm
Yeah,
like, dude,
this is a close fist from your Muay Thai
hey,
stance, but
right.
it does not. It looks like you're surrendering.
Exactly. Right. Right. And if you're being filmed, you don't have to worry
Mhm,
about looking aggressive, to the court and all that jazz. So yeah, I go right into I have to remind myself, okay, I'm not trying to take this guy down. I'm trying to get out of here. Will you please just leave me alone? So as I'm leaving, I see him talking into his radio, and I see other uniformed people inside the museum
mhm,
picking up the radio, and like they're listening and they're scanning, and then they lock on me as I'm going up the escalator. Yeah. Which I kind of expect. I'm like, he picked up the radio, and okay, I'm looking for his, because what else am I going to
mhm,
do? I'm on the escalator. And I'm like, yep, yep, yep. Oh, they're looking at me. Well, I'm embarrassed and I'm entertained. I've never been
mhm,
Jason Bourne before. Thank you. So now I'm outside on the street, and I get up there. The uniform people up there weren't looking at me, and I'm just curious at this point. I'm outside waiting on my family, and like a couple looked at me, but they didn't talk into their radios or anything like that. And I just felt like something was wrong. And we've got drills for awareness and
Mm.
trusting your intuition and your feelings. And something was eating at me. I checked the rooftop. There's no sniper. Like I'm looking around like the uniforms aren't okay. Police. No, no, there's no police en route. Wait a minute. And I looked, and there was a guy in regular clothes
Mm.
with a waist pack that looked like it was set up for easy access, glasses, and an earpiece when I looked really
Mm.
close. He's about 10 feet away, and his eyes are locked on me.
Mm.
And his hand moved when I looked at him, and I just nodded, put my hands up, and walked away because I'm just doing this for my own fun, right? Like
Mm.
I'm not trying to be a problem. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. Once my family was up there, cool on them too. The museum had a plain clothed security guard outside, which I
Mm.
think is a great idea. Right? He was in some sort of patchy shade, right near the museum. It was cool. So my kids get up there, 10 and 13, and I said, "Hey guys, come here. Hey, check this out. Yeah, everything's fine. That was weird down there, wasn't it? Yeah. Hey, check this out. If you were going to put a plain clothed security guard, what's that, Dad? I told him what that was. If you're going to put this near the museum, where would you put them?
Mm.
And what do you think they would look like?" And they like kind of told me like what they would do. And I said, "Great. Can you find one?" And they're like,
Mm.
I said, "Yeah, can you find one?" And they're like, "So the guys in blue, that's not plain clothes, right?" No, 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 no. They all look the same. Like, okay. And then they went, "Oh," and they both pointed to the guy. Now the guy wasn't holding an Uzi. Like, he's just
Yeah.
doing his job, he's looking at you. But once you know what you're looking for, they'd never even seen one before. I put the idea in their
Mm.
head. You probably heard this metaphor before.
Mm.
Once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it, and suddenly it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Mm.
So you decide that you want to buy a Chevy Silverado, one of the older models, black,
Mm.
and suddenly they're everywhere. Well, they were there before. It's not like they magically appeared, but now you're looking for them because you want to buy one.
Mm. Yeah.
So it's like you said, it's not
Mm.
for paranoia. It's,
Mm.
hey, do some research on pre-contact cues, do some research on what to look for, and then suddenly you'll
Mm.
see it. So the question was with the kids, that's one drill I just made up on the
Mm.
fly because I thought it was interesting. I'm like, I wonder if they can take this apart. Another thing you can do, and you got to watch the age on the kids because you don't want to
Mm.
scare them for any of this, but everybody's going to be different. Location of panel
Mm.
vans, location of doors.
Mm. Mm.
So there's no sense like there's no sense standing in front of a door that you don't control because that door might open and hit you, and getting hit
Mm.
by a door is dangerous, and kids do it all the time, right?
Yeah.
Constantly, hey, that
Mm.
door might open. Well, similar, yeah, the door might open, but someone might grab you and pull you in, and that can happen pretty quick.
Mm.
Again, not to be that's really scary, but
Mm.
not to be scared. It's just that when you don't
Mm.
stand near a door you don't control, then you obviate the
Mm.
possibility of that happening really quickly.
Yeah.
Can
And
you
not
teach
for
that to
nothing.
children? Of course you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Not for nothing. Being aware of where the doors are is a survival skill for a lot of other reasons. Um,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
yeah. And does it open out? Does it open in?
Mm.
Can I use
No.
this? Egress,
Yeah.
exit, all
And
this.
yeah. Andy Murphy, he runs the Secure Dad, and he was a guest on the show. A really, really smart guy. Recommends where even really young kids, toddlers, play the game Count the Doors. Where you go as
Nice.
wherever you are, you get back to the car. Okay, how many doors were there in that room? And we're not talking to them about abduction. We're not talking to them about fire. We're not talking to them about
Right.
mass shootings. But we're A, teaching them to count, and B, building that habit early of just being aware of an important aspect of your personal safety.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Another
Mm.
this is I guess I can't say eighth grade
Mm.
level because we might be talking about people that are not in the eighth grade, but so many kids don't necessarily know where they live,
Mm.
but and they don't necessarily know a phone number
Yeah.
or how to get to a phone number to their kids. And life's pretty easy these days. We've got these smartphones that do a lot for us. Problem is they do a lot for us, and when they disappear, a lot of stuff goes with them.
Mhm.
Depending on the kid, they might not have a smartphone to begin with. Sure, if they do, then do they have a hard copy version of the essential information that's in there,
Mhm.
and or do they have it
Mhm.
memorized? So they can definitely memorize their or your phone number.
Yeah.
They can
Uh,
definitely memorize an address if you want them to. There might be a
yeah.
reason not to.
Mhm.
You got to think about that. There's
Mhm.
it's definitely there's only like probably five numbers in this thing that I really need.
Mhm.
And if I want to get really fancy, like the numbers to call if my wallet gets stolen, so I can call the credit card
Yeah.
companies, because the number to call the credit card
Mhm.
company is on the credit card.
Yeah.
So having that on a waterproofed hard copy
Mhm.
is helpful, and you can do that with
Yeah.
kids and just explain to them why. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah. One tip that, as far as I know, it's a Jason Brick original, but I'm sure somebody else has thought of that. What I do with my kids is
Yeah.
the early tablet that they have that they play the games on. The
Yep.
password is your phone number. So
Oh, you get
they have
points. I like that.
they have that locked in within 24 hours.
I like they've done it so many times.
Mm,
Yeah. No, that's a
yeah.
good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
Well, man, we've been nerding out for almost an hour already. So before we
Really
yeah, so before
cool.
we go on with our lives, what is a topic about this that you don't get enough chances to talk about that you really like to go off on, but nobody asks the question?
Nobody asks the question. I got like five
Excellent.
eating in my head. Um, yes.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm not.
Mhm.
I might just give the answer because I'm not sure what the question should be.
Sounds good.
I mean,
All
yeah,
right.
the question might be,
Mhm.
what's what's the one thing I can do that's going to keep me safe physically,
Mhm.
or everything I've learned in the martial arts. Unless I practice it all the time, I forget. Does this arm go here? Does it go there? Up, down? Do I zig or do I zag? And I'm really kind of concerned that I'm not going to remember what to do when something happens.
Mhm.
And again, similar question, but it's all got the same answer. What is there one thing I can do that makes
Mhm.
it similar to what I said? What's the one move I can do that makes me safer? And the answer is something that we all know how to do anyway. We all know how to push away danger.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, you can practice this. You can experiment with it, folks, all you want. Imagine that you're only trying to get the safety. And let's not talk about weapons, but those aren't far off. But let's just go, empty hand here. You can write down three or four attacks that are probably that are more likely in the street. Like a back spinning, jump back spinning back fist is probably not your first attack that you'd expect somebody to use on you in the street or anywhere. Could be a domestic, situation or whatever. Like that kind of doesn't exist, right? But an overhand right, we kind of see that a lot. So you'd write down two or three other, quote unquote moves. Get a trusted person to do that with you really slowly, and try slowly, safely, pushing away danger and then moving to safety. If you're a martial artist, I challenge you to try that anyway, because I know you know a quote better way, right? But really, just push away danger and see what that feels like. And I'd invite you, if you get some good personal notes from that, contact me, and then let's compare notes. Because whatever you've done there, if you take that adventure on your own, number one, you're going to be safer. Number
Mhm.
two, uh, I would love to show you how to weaponize that even further,
Mhm.
because it's what we do automatically. if it's a spider or a bear or a mugger, we naturally prepare to, and sometimes we actually do push away danger.
Mm.
It's kept us alive for eons. It's one of the reasons Homo sapiens are here. It's part of the human weapon system. Uh, we should all know how to use it, and frankly, we've forgotten, and we're even socialized against it.
Mm.
So that's probably just enough to where if someone wants to take the adventure, try that.
Mm.
And I don't want to confuse you by telling you too much.
Yeah. And again, if once you have some notes on that, they should reach out to you. And where can folks reach out to you, find your work?
Yeah, let's see. A good website is www.readinessrx, as in
Mm.
prescription RX.
Mm.
So readinessrx.com. And I'll go out on a limb here and just put my email as well,
Mm.
and then you can have it in the show notes. It's joseph.borovicka@gmail.com. Just hit me up.
Yep.
I believe the Instagram is also, the handle is readinessrx as
Mm.
well. Yeah, look forward to hearing from people, and let's make the world safer.
Outstanding. Well, thank you very much, Joe, for coming on today, sharing your knowledge. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.